Hello, everybody. I wanted to make a video real quick about the origins for XJW coming out. And there's a few things that started this whole project, and I'd like to get into that. So the bullet points are, first of all, I wanted to make a channel that was different than what was out there. I wanted to support new interviews with former witnesses um, that elevates emerging ex-Jehovah's Witness artists. There have been artists who've been leaving this religion forever. You had people like Michael Jackson. You had Childish Gambino. You've got uh, there's quite a few I can name. So it's been happening for decades, but there's a lot of new people that have left, and I don't care if they're making music about this religion, but if they're making music, I'm really interested in covering that because I was a Jehovah's Witness and I was in a high school worldly band. That's how my origin is. And I've met all these other witnesses later on who were also artists. So I kind of like joined them in a sense. And so now that I'm on the outside, I kind of wanted to do that. So that's what XW coming out has a lot to do with. It is about coming out stories, and then but there's people that are artists as well. So I feel like music is this has this transcendent capability that people can relate to, that could cross cultural boundaries and can cross religious boundaries and or political boundaries or national boundaries. Music, people relate to music in a different way that's deeper and proto language or pre-language, or it's something much deeper. Instantly, two people of completely opposing views in some regard can connect on some song or connect emotionally to what the music that's happening. And that's one of my big focuses. And I don't think anyone else has been doing that. The other thing I've wanted to do was elevate XJW storytelling. There's plenty of channels out there. There's a lot of new channels as well, which I want to get into and kind of highlight some that I've been seeing pop up for the last year or so, and talk about the kind of the history of what I've observed in the XJW community. But what's common among all of them, whether they have a great microphone or a nice looking studio or a library in the background or whatever their thing is that mostly it's videos like this one, someone's face on a camera in a room, and it's not that great. It's just a really humanizing standard room, and I wanted to do something that was much stronger than that. And I feel like my first stabs at it were okay, pretty good, and they've just gotten better. And the style is generally to simply interview people and then also film with them and doing what either they love to do, performing their music, performing their dance, performing their art, or following them around in their life to show kind of just lifestyle footage and then cutting that together. So when you're watching as a viewer, you're hearing this interview, but you also have something to watch that kind of tells you more about that person, that gets you deeper into the story and also humanizes that person in a much deeper way. Where I feel like uh, listening and watching someone's head is about as basic and simple. I mean, it's low cost, but it doesn't necessarily help tell a compelling story. So with XW coming out, that was the whole plan to like push the envelope a little bit and bring in interesting people that can emotively connect and cross that boundary that this people in this religion have erected. And and again, like it's not just about reaching the people on the inside. This is for helping people connect to the content like that are outside that have never had any experience with cults. And also there's lots of other people from other cults that are like, hey, I'm it's so rare to find a story like this. I want to see I want to see someone else tell a story that I can relate to. And I just met up recently, for example, with a bunch of ex-Mormons and ex-Orthodox Jews, and it was instant camaraderie. It's amazing, and it was fun and also uh, informative. I made a short list before I started this of some of the other X shows witnesses that are also making content. Um, Before I launch into that, though, I guess the point of this video, if you're watching, is I know we're 5 minutes in, is that XW coming out is a channel that is growing. It has a full season of 15 episodes out, and it has, I think, 5 more for season 2 that are out, and they're short, concise little stories that give you, like, a little insight into someone's life, much tighter and more polished than a 2-hour selfie video. So I'll try to keep this one short. We'll see what happens, but, some of the other artists or interviewers that are out, or YouTubers, I guess we could say, in general, are there's interviews about people joking around and doing interviews with other people, talking about Jehovah's Witnesses, talking about the religion. Jay the comedian, Jackson 2020, John Maple, Eve 2.0. Um, they've seemed to have popped up in the last couple of years, which is great. New people. There's a lifestyle channel on Instagram by Cheyenne Summers called Banana Baby, and you can follow her there. There's one that more analyzes culture, mentally diseased, which is a joke because Jehovah's Witnesses believe that anyone who leaves their religion is mentally diseased, according to them. And so they're trying to just keep their followers from thinking for themselves and also from talking to these people because they teach that if you talk to an apostate or someone who's left the religion in general, that you will catch the disease from them of thinking for yourself, which is, I don't know how anyone buys that. It's easily the dumbest thing I've ever heard. There's a couple serious educational channels. One brand new one is called Truth Hurts out of England. He does like an educational thing where he dives deep in and he's like reading Bible verses. Basically, it's like a Jehovah's Witness talk that's 45 minutes long, which I think is really interesting that he has this very Jehovah's Witness format, but he dives in and like gives science and he helps people understand. He does like he correlates, or he doesn't correlate. He dissects a topic deeply, and it's good. I don't need to hear it, but I think he's doing a good job, and it's probably his target audience is people on the inside the religion. That's my guess. And you have someone like Lloyd Evans who has been around, I think now 7 years, and his thing is he like opens up Watchtower magazines and reads them, and then analyzes them, and he also watches their television show. They have a TV show. It's called JW.org, JW Broadcasting, which is like all of the 7 or 8 leaders or whatever. I honestly don't care about any of this. There's like 7 or 8 leaders of the religion made a TV show. It's out every week or something, and they make really awful music videos with the worst music ever. And he analyzes it in like super long form, like 1 or 2 hours. But he's like sort of branched out over the years to be more like a journalist. And I also don't know. I mean, his target audience, I think, is people on the inside the religion. So, like, zero value, but it's nice that it exists. I think he's doing a good job with his focus. There's one channel that surprisingly I really like, and I keep finding myself tuning into, and it makes sense for I guess, the brand or the focus of XJW Coming Out, this channel that you're watching, um, because we're kind of trying to do the same thing. His channel's called Life After Jehovah's Witnesses, and the guy who runs this name is Shane Metchin, and he keeps on bringing in people who are sort of transcended the religion, and no one ever really completely does. It's like there's many layers that you have to keep on like emerging from, like I don't know, an eggshell with many layers of eggshell or something. People always say onion, but there's nothing inside the onion but more onions. I hate that analogy. But there's all these layers, so I still have a few things that are annoying. But I've been out 12 years, so I guess that's just how it goes. Basically, what I guess I'm seeing is like most of these channels are like they're analyzing this religion and trying to they're making fun of it, or they're like coming to terms with it in this very public way on YouTube. And that's interesting to me because the last thing I needed when I left religion was to read on the internet about how the religion is wrong. Like it was so obvious to me. And I like showed myself how to get out, I guess, back in the day. And anyway, so like they're doing this thing that's very, very much like year 1 to year 5. And that's super useful for people who are also in year 1 to year 5, or super useful for people who are in a religion and they're sort of stuck or they're questioning it. And so they want to, it's like another side of the coin. Like, well, the religion says this. Well, what do people who left the religion say? And these are channels that provide a lot of information on that, or just sort of like, hey, like you can leave and then have the life you want. So Like, there's a lot of value in all those channels. Um, but what I wanted to do is sort of show people out of the religion who aren't so tied to the religion. Like, they've made it in a way, in a sense. And I think artists are an interesting choice because they've had an outlet probably while they were in the religion, and definitely after they left religion. A lot of these artists have made albums or written material that is about their process, and that's sort of like a capsule. Like, okay, this is what I went through. How it's this thing. You can go listen to it or be moved by it or whatever. But for them, it's like must be this incredibly cathartic thing. I was in a band after leaving the religion, but it was definitely not about this topic. It was more just to have fun in college because I went back to college. But it was wild and a great time, and I highly recommend going to college and running a music house and throwing shows in your living room. It's hilarious and ridiculous, and you'll definitely have a lot of stories to tell. Um, but yeah, so I guess the point is there's a lot of channels out there, and for me, I don't need to watch them. Although I highly respect the people for doing what they do, and I'm sure they have like very powerful motivations for it that keeps them going, and that's awesome. They should keep doing that. But I want to make something else, something different that doesn't exist. And I feel like XJW coming out, and then later I made a feature film, which is now out in film festivals, crowdfunded by probably all of you who are watching on Seed and Spark in 2018. And it took years to cut that film, partially because, you know, big learning curve. That's my first feature film, but also it's a really difficult topic. And I was trying to make a movie that also has never been in existence before. There's plenty of documentaries about Jehovah's Witnesses. It seems like every year there's a news documentary about the Jehovah's Witnesses that they just dive into the heavy hitting topics. And there's a lot of topics to hit, like blood transfusions, child sexual abuse, which Jehovah's Witnesses are probably worse than Catholics in the worst of Catholic history. Jehovah's Witnesses are almost certainly worse than them, and it's still under wraps. They still have somehow maintained this wall of the legal system. I don't know why the legal system can't penetrate this group, but anyway, that's a big topic, and all these documentaries touch on those two things, and just like probably how oppressive the religion is in general. The film I wanted to make, I wanted to humanize. I wanted to humanize Jehovah's Witnesses, and also humanize people who've left the religion. Because what I found the problem with most of the documentaries that come out, most of the film and TV content about this religion, does exactly the same thing. It's just repeated, regurgitated information, and it has new people, new evidence, but it seems to be the same format every time, which is these people went through a terrible situation. They have been traumatized this way, that way, that way. And let's watch them cry on camera. And then you should feel sorry for them and pity. And that's the end of the movie. And it feels a bit like trauma porn and an exploitation of the people who've gone through so much. And I also don't know what the call to action is. Like, attack this religion, take them down, or like I mean, ultimately, yes, I hope that they either reform or are like these people get some, there's a path for like recovery for some people, or maybe like you could point people in the direction of like therapy, or like here's how you can get help for going through something like that, and there's life on the other side of that. But usually they don't do that. Usually it's just feel bad, feel sad, and tell your friends about that trauma porn that you just watched, and how like gutted you should feel for these people who went through something. Or I wanted to make something that was like, hey, these people went through something, but here's their life today. Like, they did this journey. Here's their life on the inside. They went through this difficult time, and then here's this place they got to. Because I feel like that's ultimately I wanted to give people, if they're on the inside watching, give them hope that there's this life after. People that are on the outside, that don't know anything about this religion looking in for the first time. I wanted them to see these people as humans that they can relate to, so that when they do meet a Jehovah's Witness or an ex-Jehovah's Witness, they don't treat them as like an other. I want them to have understanding for where they came. They maybe came from a difficult place, but there's someone you can hang with and maybe respect. So I feel like we accomplished that with Witness Underground, and it just so happens that those were people that I knew when I was in the religion, who were all musicians when I was in a band, and they were in a band as well. They were in a bunch of different bands, um, and it's kind of amazing for me to discover this sort of huge music scene that I didn't know about when I was playing music in high school. There was this parallel music scene that was happening in the Jehovah's Witness world, just like a couple hours away in the big city. So when I went there after high school, I moved to Minneapolis and went to college. Um, I got to hang out with and become friends with all these other musicians that were also in the religion. So I was like, oh, there are actually cool people here. I didn't realize that, and I like hung out with them, party with them, traveled with them, did all kinds of fun stuff with these Jehovah's Witnesses, and went to their shows. And we went to see other bands at like the First Avenue and Triple Rock and the High Dot, not the Hexagon, and yeah, there's a bunch of venues around Minneapolis. It's quite an amazing music city. So having that friendship with these people on the inside, um, years later, I found myself like hitting them up, like, "Hey, do you have any music that you've made that I could use in a film I'm working on?" And I kept on, it just kept on happening. I kept hitting up Eric and Cindy from High TV, who had been friends of mine in the religion, and they were pumping out awesome music. And I was like, "This is incredible." And then when I finally got the skills that I thought I was able to make something full and powerful, um, I just had in the back of my head that like I'm sure I could get some great interview from them. I'd like to include them. And it took me a while. Like I crowdfunded a whole film based on XJW Coming Out, which is a very different. It's a kind of a different format where like everyone doesn't, no one's connected to each other in any way. And I thought I could like have 25 interviews and somehow connect the dots because the religion ties it together. And I'm so glad I didn't try that, because I've seen that now with a bunch of other former Jehovah's Witness movies and documentaries where all these people have no connection at all. They're live in different places and have different lives and different struggles. And the uniting factor is the religion. And that just, it's more like an educational documentary. That's what happens. Whereas with this, I was able to like help tell their story the way they wanted it to be told. And I also happened to know it's an amazing story. So I was really wanted to tell it the way they wanted it to be told. Like it was more of a collaborative thing, being true to their lives and their experiences. Um, so the film covers goes into their background in the religion, what they all did. There's a elder, a Bethelite, a ministerial servant, a guy who ran the literature counter, and a woman who struggles through her teenage years to try to find out if she really believes this thing, while being mistreated at different times based on the way she dresses and like her challenges of just being put down by the culture. And each of them have a different path that led them out. Um, and but the uniting factor in this story is that they're all artists that were really close friends and had a really strong bond with each other throughout their Jehovah's Witness experience. And that the value there was that their bond was so much closer and deeper than this religion could ever provide. That when one of them, their close friends, finally did leave, like there wasn't a complete barrier cut off for the whole community. There was still communication. And communication is so important. It's like the easiest thing to say will help almost every situation is communication, whether that be a relationship, a personal relationship, a romantic relationship, or nation to nation. Diplomacy is like far better than going to war. And I feel like Jehovah's Witnesses are a build a wall kind of culture more than a let's be reasonable and like have a conversation to figure this out. They're very fundamentalist and extremist when it comes to their viewpoints. They'll put their foot down and that's it. They're incredibly stubborn. Um, So anyway, I wanted to make something that would tear the barrier down, or at least open a window, kind of thing. And I hope that this film does that. I'm excited for everyone to watch it. And with the latest news, we've now been accepted to 10 film festivals have selected our film, which is amazing. And a few of them are really big deal festivals that I'm really excited about. There's going to be 3 this month in October, and then one really important one in November, where the coolest thing in the world. The festival 5 months ago let us know. Usually they let you know a month in advance. Let us know 5 months ago, 6 months in advance, that they wanted our film. They loved it. They thought it would be the crown of their festival. Not to use their words, I don't remember what they said exactly. It was like it's like exemplifies the art scene of Minneapolis. The film takes place in Minneapolis. It's a documentary. It's a real music scene from there, and they wanted to highlight the film in a really big way. So they asked I thought the artists that are in the film would be interested in playing live, which they are, and they will be. And you should come. You can come to the festival, which is really cool. You can watch the film, and we're also shooting the music performance that comes after the film of all these artists playing live for a few hours, and that's going to be, hopefully, this is our plan, the final scene of the movie. So you can watch the film, and then you get to be there in person and be in the crowd footage of the actual final scene of that film. We're talking about like a few minutes of the last, like maybe 5 minutes of the film will change. We're planning to change out, and then we're planning to also cut that into like another feature film or music, live performance, and conversation kind of thing. It'll be different, but it'll be very professional. We're gonna have a 7-person film crew for this, which is very cool, and it's easily the most elaborate thing I'll have ever done, or I have done up to this point. I got my DP that I work with out of Denver to fly in for it, and then a filmmaker and DP or director out of Minneapolis who's done a ton of stuff. He's going to help on it, and one of the coolest things that are coming out of that is that Ryan Sutter, the main storyline through the documentary, he ran this music production studio in the religion, and it was called Nuclear Gopher, and they recorded well over 30 albums that are high production quality albums out of there over 17 years. Him and his brothers were at the core of that, and he's restarting it. So he's got a building, and actually, when we are shooting, the opening scene in the film, we're shooting in what will become his studio, and that was on purpose. He had like 4 other spaces we considered shooting in, but that one was like, well, if we empty it, it's like this big empty open space that's really rugged, which I really like the idea of. And that he's like insulating, and by winter he's going to have like a full on like legit studio to record in, doing sound treatments and everything to it. He's going to have like a booth with a sound deck outside of it, and I don't know, it's just really exciting because this film isn't just a nostalgic take on the past life of these people, the former lifestyle of these people. It's like the kickstart to Ryan's near future relaunch of the thing he loves to do, which is record bands. And he wants to record some local artists that are in Minneapolis, some friends of his, some other bands, re-release some records that he's worked on, and then start recording and working with other live artists and record their new content in his studio, which is kind of a shout out. Like, hey, if you're an XJW artist, or just an artist, especially if you're in Minneapolis, but if you're willing to fly in or drive in, especially if in the region, it's just easier. But if you're willing to fly in for it, he could record you in some sessions there, and it's because he loves doing it. And one of the things he wants to do, in addition to recording the music and helping produce the music, is another guy in the film, Eric Elvendahl, is a really great producer, I think is the correct term for what he does. Music producer. So he would he'll like be there to help do backup and help like form the song if that's needed. He's really good at that, like knowing what a song needs when. He can play a lot of different instruments, and he's also really good at mixing. and mastering live or recorded music. So recording, producing, playing on, and mixing and mastering, and him and Ryan are like an incredible team. So if you want to get your songs recorded or even just a single or something, like that will be possible, and they're super excited to work with you. That's in the future, which is great. I'm glad there's a life that comes after this for everyone. Um, if you so one of the things I wanted to discuss, and I will keep on harping on this, is that we're trying to build our audience. And if you like our content, we hope that you'll just subscribe and like it. But if you are interested in actually supporting it, we made a super easy way to do it on Patreon for $1. So Patreon's a paywall to YouTube, and if you most everything I put up so far for season 1 is out and free, and any videos like this are also out on YouTube and free. But there's a bunch of like what we're calling season 2, which is the second wave of interview content that I captured during the same month that I shot the feature. I was on the road and meeting up with other artists and filming interviews with them as well in a bunch of locations. And that we're calling season 2. And so there's a few of those interviews that are already up. I think there's 5 on the page, and you can see it all for $1. So please jump on and like support it if you can, if you're interested and you like what we do. That helps a lot. Mostly we're just trying to build our audience, but the money really does help make this all possible and make me feel like people care and are interested in this happening, and that motivates me to go do more. Primary focus though, and what it really is supporting in the real time is every time we get into a new festival, there's 10 now, I have to recut the film. And I don't have to recut it, but I want to recut it and make it better. And every film festival, I meet people and I get feedback, and they're like, if you tweak this one thing, I think it would really help. If you do this one thing, I think it'll really help. And then I get, I guess get feedback. So I want to like incorporate all that feedback into the next cut. So like the next audience can give me new feedback. And it's like this incredible test space to have a live viewing or even a virtual viewing and get feedback from people. So my real focus for the last year and a half has been working on Witness Underground and making that a film that people love. So I feel really good about that. October is going to be incredible for the films world because of all the festivals. And also with one of the festivals I can't name at the moment, but they've got a bunch of really cool programs for directors and filmmakers to meet people, get publicity, but also learn from each other and do workshops and panels and stuff like that. So that's coming up. Okay, back to, there's a few bullet points. Okay, I did the bullet points. Yeah. The other thing that's happening on a lot of these YouTube channels with other XJWs witnesses that I saw that made me want to make XJW Coming Out was that the topics are all really stagnant. They talk about what the Watchtower says, what their life was like at the Kingdom Hall, how the culture works, and all of that, I guess, is really fascinating. It definitely feels good as someone who went through it to like hear someone talk about it. Like, okay, yeah, they get it. One more person that gets it, great, because almost no one you ever meet does. Most people get it. Most people think they find out that you're Jehovah's Witness and they don't know what that means. They think they know what it means. They've got like a category in their mind for what a Jehovah's Witness is, and it's false. Like it's almost never even close to being what it's really like. They have no idea. And that was one of my motivations to make a movie, because I was so tired of telling people what my life was like and them not misunderstanding me after having an entire conversation about it. They still like don't get it at all. So I was hoping that I could make something that'd be like, this is what it was like for me. This is what it was like for a lot of people. Watch this movie and then we can talk about it if you care. Which I think it works. I think people are like understand to a much greater degree after watching my film. And that feels great. And I guess maybe that's why people make these YouTube channels. But I feel like they're all so similar. And I wonder what the value is. I think more voices is better. And I'm really glad that it's not just the same old voices. For a while there, it just seemed like there was just the John Cedars channel. And personally, I wasn't interested in what he had to say on most things. and I didn't understand why he was so. I still don't understand why he's so popular. Except I guess he's very consistent and prolific. He never stops making content, um, and there is a quality to it. He dives in and makes a point, and that's important. There's definitely a thing I saw a few years ago when I was first looking on the internet about Jehovah's Witnesses, because I spent like the first 8 years, I just didn't look. I didn't know. I was very ignorant about what was on the internet when it comes to this topic. What I kept seeing was there's like hundreds of people telling their story, like their life story, on a selfie video. It was almost like a public coming out ceremony, like make a YouTube video like this, telling your life story about what it was like to be in a Jehovah's Witness and how you felt, and so many of them cried on camera, and it's very like, I'm sure it was a very cathartic thing to go through, and like a release, like to be able to like put that out in the world, because your Jehovah's Witnesses don't want them to do that. It's interesting that the witnesses care at all that that's like people do that or not, because it's not like it's high quality video films. It's like a selfie cam, like everyone can do that. Jehovah's Witnesses do that. They make selfie videos all the time. Apparently, I don't look at these, but I see people comment about them. And then, yeah, so those were happening. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I kind of covered what I wanted to say about that, I guess, earlier. And there's a couple other people I wanted to kind of shout out to. Denise Wise with Rising from the Ashes of the Jehovah's Witnesses, I believe is her book. I just read it. I just finished it. Should be sitting around somewhere. It's not right here. It is right here. No, that's a different book. Damn it. I will show you that cover before this show is over. She wrote this book called Rising from the Ashes of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's a memoir about her life. She's an English woman who moved to Bavaria, married a witness, and they had a daughter and raised her there. And then it's a whole story. Obviously, you should read her book. I think you can get on Lulu Books or LuluSomething.com. Isis All Things is her author name that she writes under. And then another woman who's a Polish film director actor out of Poland, who lives in Dublin. And in Dublin, where she's married and has a young new baby, congratulations on the birth of your child. She made a short film over the last 2 years called Over the Pandemic, actually. And she got the money for it right as the pandemic was happening. It was like, what, seriously? Like, I have all these plans and now the entire world's screwed. But she was able to pull it off, got all these actors and camera people and lighting people, and got a whole crew together and made this movie that she crowdfunded on Indiegogo called Debutante, a short film. And I've gotten to see early cuts. And now it's out at film festivals as well. So we're kind of riding the same wave, which is really awesome, even though like I have a feature documentary and she has a narrative short film. They're very different animals with a very different lifespan and trajectory. She's hoping to make a feature film and like build her career off this film. And she did an incredible job, I think, of directing it. And the actors were great and the casting was awesome. And like it just really came together. So if you get a chance, don't forget to check that out. And one of the cool things we were able to do, I was trying to help her. I hope I helped her do crowdfunding with her campaign. And I put a bunch of money in with the hope that I would be able to give back to our Patreon patrons on our Patreon that fund our project. And everyone who funded our Patreon at that time, at least, will get a digital download of that film once it's out. And so the lifespan of that film, I guess it'll be like early next year, I hope. So we'll see. And let's see. Oh, there's a guy. I guess I can back up. 35 minutes. Maybe I'll do another video that tells like the life of this film, how it all started. Yeah, that's what I'll do next. I'll make a video about how I came up with this idea, what the path was, the crowdfunding, and then like who got involved, which was a super interesting project. Um, and it worked, and like super proud of how all that went and how many people stood up and like thought like their activism could help support this film. And now a film exists, so I kind of want to shout out all the people that kind of got involved with the making, or I guess the funding, the crowdfunding and community aspect of XJW Coming Out and the Witness Underground that came out of that. So yeah, thanks for checking in. I will make another video right on the heels of this one, and watch for that one. Thank you.